All right, guys. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had a good weekend. And now it's time to get back to work. Some announcements before we get started. I don't know if you guys have heard, maybe you have, that the TEA, which is the agency in charge of education here in Texas, they have decided to forego the parent assignment logs. So those are no longer required. Just make sure you're doing every day's work and turning them in a timely manner. Try not to do it at the last minute, all right? So again, you do not have to do these parent assignment logs, okay? If you already did it for Monday, that's great, but we do not need them anymore. We will not be taking them up anymore. Again, if you guys have any questions, let me know, all right? So let's get into today's lesson. Here, give me 2 seconds, guys, and I will. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. So today we're going to be reviewing setting and how it affects the characters and the plot. Students will complete the setting table on page 576 in their Pearson workbook. So again, if you guys want to do it paper, then complete the chart on page 576 and you can turn the paper version in, or majority of you are doing online. You can take a picture of the paper version, submit that on Google Classrooms, or do the digital version, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, before we get in, we are going to still be focusing on our same story, all right? We're not going to be changing stories. It's going to be the same story. Setting. How setting influences the story. A story setting can shape the characters' personalities, attitudes, and actions. The way characters think and behave is often influenced by the world in which they live in. In some stories, the setting itself feels conflict, as character battle elements such as snow, wind, floods, or earthquakes. As you analyze fictional stories, note details that refer to the setting, including references to time, place, and cultural values. So whenever they're talking about time, they're talking about what's the time of day, what's the season, what's the month, what's the historical period. They're talking about place, maybe the landscape, the weather, are they in a city? Are they on a farm? Are they in the middle of nowhere? And cultural values. So is the story about, a group of farmers and their culture, like farming culture, or is it about, are the characters Hispanic and so their culture affects them, or is the story about African Americans and their culture? So, the cultural values is how people behave, right? How they believe and their attitudes towards anything. So, an example. Story setting. In 1950, a family going to California breaks a wagon wheel in the Rocky Mountains. They must use natural resources to survive as night falls and the temperature drops to dangerous levels. How does the setting here that is described affect the characters or plot? Well, they break down in the Rocky Mountains. So we know they're in a mountain. They're not in an ocean. They're not in the desert. They're in a mountain. So if they're in the mountains, that means that there's a bunch of trees everywhere. Maybe there's a bunch of animals that they could perhaps survive on, hunt and survive on. Or there's certain materials in forests and mountains that they could use to survive. So here on this side, we would write, on the effects of characters/plot, the setting will drive the plot of the story. Characters must race to find food and shelter before night falls. Again, because they're in the mountains. There's bears, there's wolves, there's adult deers who can hurt them. So that's that setting of the Rocky Mountains causes the characters to realize that they can't just be walking around and taking their time on anything. They have to hurry before, these animals come out and they're even more in danger. Now, we went over setting again back when we read The Grapes of Wrath and Black Sunday, the Dust Bowl. Remember how the setting there influenced the characters. Now, what was the setting? Well, it was in the Great Plains during the Dust Bowl, during the 1930s. Okay, that would be time. That would be examples of time. Historical period, Dust Bowl, 1930s. Place. It was farming. It was rural cities. It wasn't like New York City or LA. Cultural values. There were tenant farmers. So they believed in everyone must work on the farm. They believed that, their family's been there for generations. They have their farming mindset. So what happened that affected the characters in The Grapes of Wrath or in Black Sunday? Well, the Dust Bowl happened, correct? The Dust Bowl is part of the setting. Characters had to battle elements. What did they have to battle? They had to battle a huge dust storm that ranged, 1,000 miles. Because of that dust storm, what effect did it have? Well, everyone had to move west, and most everyone moved to California. Next. 1. Reread The Circuit. All right. You guys should have already read it once. Gone through it through last week's assignments. So reread it now. It shouldn't take you too long. 2, you're going to be thinking about these questions. At what point in the story does the setting have an effect on the characters or plot? In The Circuit, does the time period, the place, or the cultural values affect the characters and or plot? Would the characters' actions or decisions be different if this story was set in a different time period or place? Would the plot of the story be different if it was set in a different time period / location with different cultural values? So that first question, it's asking us, how does the setting affect the characters? Basic. The second question is asking us, does the time period that it's in, which the time period I believe is in the 1960s, affect the characters? Does the time period, the place, or their cultural values? What culture are they part of? They're part of, they're Mexican migrant workers. Okay, don't forget that. So does their culture affect the characters or how the plot is driven? Would the characters' actions or decisions be different if this story was set in a different time period? So what would happen if this was set in 2020? How would that difference in time affect how the characters are acting, how it's affecting their decisions? What about if the plot was set in a different time period or location with different cultural values? So this was taking place in California during the 60s. What would happen if it was taking place in perhaps, let's see, what would happen if it was taking place in, Ireland during, I don't know, the 1800s or something, different locations, different time periods? Would the outcome still be the same, or, would that change in setting affect it? Or maybe instead of in California, what would happen if the story was based here in Texas? Would it really make a difference, or would, some of the actions in the plot change? 3, you're going to complete the setting chart, which is on the assignment slide. Again, you guys, all you have to do is go to right here under March 30th through April 1st, click on Monday lesson and assignment, and click on assignment. Analyze how the setting of the circuit affects the characters that helps develop this plot. The first entry has already been done for you. All you have to do is just add 3 more examples. So the setting detail that we chose was, it was that time of year again. Ethel, the strawberry sharecropper, did not smile. The peak of strawberry season was over. So this detail, it was strawberry season. That's the setting detail. Strawberry season. So how did this have an effect on the characters or plot of the story? Well, the character's livelihood, in other words, how the characters earn money, it depends on the crops that are grown. So if a certain crop is out of season, meaning it's no longer going to grow, then those characters have to move to a different farming location to go pick the next set of crops. So again, you're going to do 3 more examples. This is what you're going to turn in to me if you're doing the digital version. If you're doing it on paper, take a picture and submit that as well. If you guys have any questions, let me know. All right? And I will see you guys later.